Greetings, everyone. This is me again, Sarah Berserk. Happy Ramadan. Ramadan blessings to all the Muslims. So, God bless you and your family members, your country and your people, your friends, your acquaintances. Okay, so now I proceed with this. I think I found out how to, in other words, explain this thing that has taken place, the contradictions I have seen in these two, maybe 4 or 5 Quran ayats, but let's keep it very simple. Then, first of all, just say that I'm going to say Surah Mujadila ayat 2 and Surah Azab ayat 6, where, okay, in Surah Azab ayat 6, Allah makes the wives of the Prophet the believers' mothers. Right, and so here it is again. The Prophet is closer to the believers than their own selves, and his wives are. I think this is enough because this is where the topic, this is what the topic is on, right? So the problem was that the Muslims would say that, oh no, you can, due to this ayat now, whatever is in the 5th ayat, 6th ayat, fourth ayat of Surah Azab, and Surah Mujadila, 2nd ayat, it's an evil word. They say, I don't know how they took that, the Muslims, but they say that we can still call someone else's son, someone else's mother, we can call them our sons or our mothers out of respect. Although that I contend also due to some things here in the Quran ayahs, but I don't want to get into that right now. How I'm going to come on this is through something else. Exception to the rule is that what he condemns, he puts in here, he makes the Prophet's wives as mothers of the believers. What happens here is that it becomes unlawful for the believers to marry the Prophet's widows. It changes the law by using the mother. So it cannot only be taking them out of honor or respect, but that I saw in Mujadila, Surah Mujadila 2, is that you cannot legally change the position when, for example, how am I to say? Okay, I think I worked it out how to say this. Okay, look at the commentary here. His wives, this is Aka Puya Ali commentary under Surah Azab verse 6. This is the Shia commentary. So, what Aka Puya says is his wives are their mothers, has been mentioned to say you should not marry his widows after him at any time, in verse 53 of this surah. Verse 53 of the surah. You see this? Surah 33, ayat 53. Believers, enter not the houses of Prophet without his permission, nor wait for a meal to be prepared. Instead, enter when you are invited to eat and when you have had the meal. Oh, let me read the whole ayat. O you who have believed, do not enter the houses of the Prophet except when you are permitted for a meal without waiting its readiness. But when you are invited, then enter, and when you have eaten, disperse without seeking to remain for conversation. Indeed, that behavior was troubling the Prophet, and he is shy of dismissing you. But Allah is not shy of the truth, and when you ask his wives for something, ask them from behind a partition. That is purer for your hearts and their hearts, and it is not for you to harm the Messenger of Allah or to marry his wives after him. Ever indeed that would be in the sight of Allah an enormity. Ever indeed it would be in the sight of Allah an enormity. So let's see what, so this is a verse here, and here the Muslims may say that he's just made the mothers of the believers, no, his Prophet's wives mothers of the believers, just out of respect and honor. So this does not change the law, right? But what the commentary says is even more interesting, intriguing. His wives are their mothers has been mentioned to say you should not marry his widows after him at any time. In verse 53 of this surah. There is no significance in it other than the fact that whatever is associated with the Holy Prophet is to be respected and honored, even if the thing or person possesses no merits of its own, just like the black stone, which was fixed by Abraham and Ismail in the house of Allah by his command. So did I get this right? There is no significance in it other than the fact that whatever is associated with the Holy Prophet is to be respected. There's no significance in it other than the fact that whatever is associated with the Holy Prophet is to be, because they're the wives of the Prophet are associated with the Prophet, that's why, is to be respected and honored. His wives are their mothers, has been mentioned to say you should not marry his widows after him at any time in verse 53 of this surah. Let's see if I got this right. So he does mention in surah, in the same surah, verse 53, that you are not supposed to marry his wives, but then it's like a surety, or what? The wives are their mothers. His wives are their mothers. has been mentioned to say, even though after in the verse, what's this? It says in the verse 53 of this surah that you should not marry his widows after him at any time. So you see what he has done. Safiya, daughter of Huyay ibn Akhtab. Hey, it says here. Now, although it's been mentioned that the wives of the Prophet you cannot marry, the believers cannot marry, here his wives are their mothers has been mentioned to say you should not marry his widows. Emphasis laid by this. So, let's read more. Refer to the commentary of Anfal 75 to know the principle of inheritance. You see, position as well as his property. You see, when a son, your adopted son, it should not change the position of your adopted son to your son, your real son. If he was your blood son, you would have given him, made him the heir, given him your inheritance. So, but the adopted son remains an adopted son. No law that applies to your son Let me explain it like this. No law that applies to your blood son would be applicable for adopted son. You can marry his divorcee, his ex-wife, things like that, right? Because he is not your blood son. So he married his adopted son's wife, divorcee, ex-wife. Prophet Muhammad did. Let me clarify. I was trying to make a video, but something I couldn't. Something happened. The last one, it just because in the beginning I did something wrong. It's like the problem is the Muslims say that here it's only out of respect. I wonder what the Sunnis say about this. Sunni Muslims, non-Shia Muslims, right? Although it is mentioned in Ayat 53 that you cannot marry his wives, the Shia commentary is that the reason why his wives are their mothers is not just out of respect or honor, but to emphasize that you cannot marry. Now they've become your mothers. So Allah uses the same law he has condemned, legally declaring your wives. It's like using it as a law, you know. Declaring your wives to be your mother would legally mean, at that time of practice, at that time, what they were practicing, was that they would be, there's a divorce, you know, to have a divorce, pronounce a divorce, right? Even the sons, am I, you see, so when he condemns, okay, when he condemns, it's an evil word. That I have a contention with that, like a problem with the Surah Mujadila 3. No, 2, sorry. I make these mistakes. So where's Surah Mujadila 2? So, let me get this right. So you see here, Surah Mujadila, the Muslims have a problem with not Surah Mujadila, but what I'm telling them is that Allah, there's a contradiction between Surah Mujadila Ayat 2 and Surah Azab Ayat 6. Why? Because not only, okay, let's say you can call your other people's sons your sons. Out of affection and out of respect, you can call another's mother your mother. Just out of respect, honor, right? But that is not the case here. In Surah Azab Ayat 6, although it has been stated, greetings Christopher Machoko, how are you? Warmly welcome here, I'm honored. Christopher Machoko, can you please help me? Very controversial. Yes, I know. It's taken so much time. Very simple, but no, I have a problem with, I think, explaining it. Very controversial, yes. Very controversial. You see, in Surah Mujadila, the calling, okay, the Muslims, you see, the problem is the Muslims who say about this ayat, their tafsirs and all, that you can call your adopted sons. No, you can call another person's son your son. You can call your adopted son your son, but give him their father's name, or if you don't know, then they are your brothers and in faith, or they are entrusted to you, like you are the guardians. So adoption in the real sense goes out the door. Okay, But what is allowed, you can call them. Okay, let's go with the Muslims. It's here when he says, when Allah says it's the evil word you speak, do the Muslims mean that he has to? You see, this whole thing changes the law and disrespects the wife when you call them. But what actually is happening here, disrespect or what, but it's a divorce and legally it takes place. When you call them your mothers, you're using the term mother for law, for a legal thing to take place in law, right? So she becomes unlawful to you, your wife. Position, like using, you cannot use a position of your adopted son to put him in the position, change the position and make it legal, like give him inheritance. Christopher Machoko, are you getting what I'm saying? So what Allah did is not only by mentioning this, that his mothers are the believers, oh, his wives are the believers' mothers, the Prophet's wives, but that what happened? They cannot marry. This is what the reason why he's mentioned this. This is what the Shia say. Right? Shia commentary. Not only out of respect. Let me see if out of respect. Surah, what the Sunnis have to say about this. Surah Azab verse 6. Tafsir. So as I'm doing this, the Prophet is closer to the believers. Tafsir, let's see. Did this ayat, part of the ayat, come in position of the mothers? So that it emphasizes, it becomes very, like, you're not supposed to in any way, or, widow, even the widow of a Prophet, that is the relationship of the Prophet with the Muslims. Okay, this we don't, no other relationship comparable with the relationship. Okay, and the Prophet is more, okay, and greater well-wisher. They cannot, okay. The same thing has been said for the Prophet on the basis of special relationship and connection. In this connection, one should also note that the wives of the Prophet are mothers of the believers only in the sense that the Muslims are under obligation to have reverence and respect for them. And no Muslim could marry them. Oh, yes. So, no Muslim. You see? Now, what has Allah done? Condemned in Surah Mujadala that you're not supposed to use the position of a mother, your real mother, to apply it in law to give divorce to your wives, right? To make your wives unlawful. And he's done the same thing here. Both regarding Shia and Sunni tafsir, we see that he used the mother to make the wives of the Prophet mothers of the believers, would mean in no way can they, the Muslims have to respect them. They can, I think even if he's alive, but they can, no Muslim could marry them. No Muslim could marry them, not even as for other matters, they are not like the mothers. For example, apart from the real relatives, yes, that's okay. All other Muslims were non-mahram for them, from whom they had to observe hijab. The daughters are like not like real sisters for the Muslims, so that no Muslim could marry them. Their brothers and sisters were not like maternal uncles and aunts for the Muslims. Okay, they could not be inherited by a Muslim unless a close relative, as a mother is inherited by her son. But the only law, another noteworthy point in this connection is that according to the Quran, the status accrues to all the wives of the Prophet, among whom Aisha is also included. But when a section made Ali and Fatima and their children the center of their faith, made the made the whole system of religion revolve around them, made Aisha, along with many other companions, the target of curse and abuse, this verse became a hindrance for them. For according to it, every person who claims to be a believer has to acknowledge her as his mother. You see this? So the very thing that God has condemned, meaning even using, you see what has he said in Surah Mujadila? Your mothers are only those who have given you birth. Yet the Muslims persist in saying it's okay for God to make someone else, like the Prophet's wives, their mothers, believers' mothers. Excuse me. I just have this terrible cough, just putting myself mute. Okay. So the Muslims persist in saying, even though it's here, it's not even about, is it about law or something, changing the, like making it, bringing it to effect. Like if you call someone a mother, means that you can't marry her, you know, and all this. So this would mean, no, if you can't marry her, then a law has taken effect. A law has taken effect. So even if the Muslims come this way, but they will have to come this way to explain it to me, because I'm the critic of Islam in this. How are they going to explain it to me? Right? It's very clear. You see, if they say in Surah Mujadila, out of disrespect and all, that's just your opinion. But God said it's an evil word and it's falsehood. And in Surah Azab, ayat 4 and 5, which one? Allah says, I speak the truth. I tell the truth. So it's only a saying by your mouths. You cannot take another son like your own son, your real son. You can't even give him inheritance. In the case Islamic law, you can't give him inheritance. You can't make him an heir of your wealth, property. Right? Surah Mujadila, you cannot pronounce divorce on your wives by calling them the back, even as the backs of our mothers, because you've brought the term mother and you're implementing a law, right, which is against what your wives are not. They are not your mothers. They are not even like the backs of your mothers. So forget metaphorically even taking it. God says no. What is the reason behind all this? Blood, and using that blood relationship, using your real mother and applying it on another as a law that now you are like the. So, no, don't say that. If Christian, sorry, if, sorry, because Christopher and Christian, it is. If Muslims say that this is out of respect and because, and not only out of respect and honor, but also the tafsir says that no one should marry the widows or even the wives of Prophet Muhammad after he's divorced them. We don't know, but it doesn't say widow there in the Sunni reference, noteworthy. They cannot marry, can they marry the ex-wives of Prophet Muhammad if he had to divorce a wife? Or yes, in Surah, does it mean exchanging a wife? No more can you exchange your wives. Yes, I think that if he did exchange wives by divorcing and taking another wife, another's wife, then you could do that. But let's now stick to very easy thing. So the thing is that this mothership, that is your mother, you can't use this relationship for another to change, to bring a law, like it is forbidden for me, or you are now forbidden for me. Do you get it? Is it very clear? Very, very clear. The thing that didn't work out here, if I may show you, is my Don Hugh is here. If you take more than one wife, it's adultery. No, Don Hugh, we are not on this subject. We are on another subject. I'm on this. It is very controversial and very, this thing to explain. So let me see if I can show you this. Of Prophet Muhammad. I hope I've made it clear. It's not working, the video. So let me put it this way. What Allah means in Mujadila, Ayat 2 and Azab, Ayat 4 to 5, is that you should not legally, even by law, take adopted sons. For example, making them heirs to your inheritance and call your wives mothers in divorcing them. Then Allah uses the term mother to do the same. That is to implement a law to forbid believers from marrying the widows of Prophet Muhammad. I hope I've made it more clear this time than before in other videos and live streams, and have proven that Allah cannot make an exception to the un-Islamic law He has condemned and use it in the same way for wives of the Prophet, making them unlawful for the believers to marry when widowed. Okay, did you get this? Very controversial and very difficult to explain. Oh God, okay. This didn't come, some error has come. I don't know. Also, it's, I've been repeating myself. What is the problem with Muslims? The mothers of the believers, they practiced by the Arabs before the prophethood of Muhammad. Sorry, this part is a bit cut off. So the Muslims have reached a conclusion that they can call someone's son and someone's mother out of affection for someone else's son and out of respect for someone else's mother. Taking the ayat in Surah Azab at 6, where God, Allah has made the Prophet's wives the mothers of the believers. They feel that this is out of respect. You can do that as long as it is not used legally to change the position of your adopted son to your real son. Okay, so it's changed a law at least that now the Prophet's wives, no one can marry after the death of the Prophet. So we have here Akamedi. It's changed the position of the wives of the Prophet, Surah Azab, with saying that mothers can be taken, the wives of the Prophet can be taken as mothers. Do you get this? Do you get this? Okay, let me explain further. Can you see this? Puya Ali commentary from Multilingual Quran, Shia commentary. This is under Surah Azab, Ayat 6. His wives are their mothers. Has been mentioned to say you should not marry his widows after him at any time. So this, what it means is that not only out of respect did God put make the wives of the Prophet, the believers' mothers, but also to bring about this law legally, stating, making it his wives, the widows of Prophet Muhammad, should not be married by anyone, right? So this, again, by stating in the Quran ayat Surah Azab, ayat 6, that the wives of the Prophet are the believers' mothers, it implements, it brings a law in that you can now not marry, not only respect and honor them, but not marry the widows of Prophet Muhammad. So it brings a law in which is contrary to the ayats and the reasons given in Surah Mujadila, ayat 2, and Surah Azab, ayat 4 and 5. So let me put it this way. What Allah means in Mujadila, ayat 2 and Azab, ayat 4 to 5, is that you should not legally, even by law, take adopted sons. For example, making them heirs to your inheritance and call your wives mothers and divorcing them. Then Allah uses the term mother to do the same. That is to implement a law to forbid believers from marrying the widows of Prophet Muhammad. I hope I've made it clear, more clear this time. Is it clear? So where I started from is wrong, because the Muslims will be saying, no, 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 no. So let me show you here this video. I had an error. So I'm going to play this and let you listen to it, think about it, what I'm trying to say, because I failed. I think it's better to show you this way. Then maybe I can make a video and I would not get an error making this in a video. Why defend Islam and kill people on apostasy and blasphemy when two ayats from the Quran prove irrefutable contradictions between them, and it is not my opinion or perspective about them, proving that Islam is a false religion and the Quran is from other than Allah. Surah Nisa ayat 82. Then do they not reflect upon the Quran? If it had been from any other than Allah, they would have found within it much contradiction. So we start with this ayat to see if there are any contradictions in the Quran without coming to any conclusions about Allah being the true God and Prophet Muhammad being the true Prophet of Islam. Another thing is that this ayat gives the right to each and every individual to do their own research first to see if there are any contradictions in the Quran. When can Allah bring an exception to His rule, such as the case in Surah Mujadila Ayat 2 and Surah Azab Ayat 6? Surah Mujadila Ayat 2 says, "Those who pronounce zihar among you to separate from their wives, they are not consequently their mothers. Their mothers are none but those who gave birth to them." And indeed, they are saying an objectionable statement and a falsehood. Surah Azab Ayat 6. The Prophet is more worthy of the believers than themselves, and his wives are in the position of their mothers, meaning his wives are the believers' mothers. So here we have Allah making an exception for the wives of the Prophet and has made them mothers, while in Surah Mujadila 2 it says that none can be their mothers except those who gave birth to them. So none can be the mothers except those who gave birth to them goes against Allah making wives of the Prophet the believers' mothers in Surah Azab Ayat 6, as it is stated. So Allah cannot make an exception here either in His law, because here He's closed every kind of exception. In Surah Mujadila 2, when He says, "The mothers are none but those who gave birth to them." Moreover, not even to call anyone else as mothers, because He says here it is an evil statement, actually, word by word Arabic. So, but objectionable statement, this translation goes to state, and a falsehood. So you must not even call someone your mother, because that would make it a false statement. Now we come to Surah Azab ayats 4 and 5, in which in 4 he says that Allah speaks the truth. So now in this case, no exception to the rule or law of Allah can be made. However, we see that Allah has made that exception Himself by making the Prophet's wives believers' mothers in Surah Azab ayat 6. Another problem we have is that the Muslims have they think that you can call the sons of another, your adopted sons, your sons, and you can call someone your mother who is not your mother, but that you should not take them as your real mothers or your sons, your adopted sons, your real sons. That is okay. But here Allah says, in these two ayats you can see, Surah Azab ayat 4, "Nor has He made your adopted sons your sons. Such is only your manner of speech by your mouths. But Allah tells you the truth, and He shows the right way." So that even if you can call your adopted sons your sons, this is a manner of your speech. But Allah would never do that, is that bring that in law and ask you, like He has asked in Surah Azab, to the believers to take the wives of the Prophet, your mothers. So Allah tells you the truth, and He shows the right way. Allah would never, meaning Allah would never implement a law making you take someone else's mothers, your mothers, or someone else's sons, your sons, even though you may call them your sons. Like it is said here in Surah Azab Ayat 5, What counts is the intention of your hearts. And in Surah Azab, ayat 4, Allah tells the truth and He shows the right way. Another thing is this part of the ayat, nor has He made adopted sons your sons. Such is only your manner of speech by your mouths. But Allah, meaning Allah tells the truth, meaning Allah speaks the truth. Allah tells the truth. So Allah would never have you, by law, take someone else's mothers as your own mothers, or someone else's sons as your own sons, which He has done in Surah Azab, ayat 6, regarding the Prophet's wives. Now the only problem we're left with is that whether the Muslims can call someone else's mother their mother, or someone else's child son or daughter. So here we have in Surah Mujadila ayat 2 that and indeed they are saying an evil statement or word, right, to put it precisely in Arabic. So that, and a falsehood. Saying is also an evil word and a lie. So even looking at the footnote, the saying, emphasis is on the saying by a husband to his wife. You are to me like the back of my mother, meaning unlawful to approach. This was a type of divorce practiced by the Arabs before the prophethood of Muhammad. Sorry, this part is a bit cut off. So the Muslims have reached a conclusion that they can call someone's son and someone's mother out of affection for someone else's son and out of respect for someone else's mother. Taking the ayat in Surah Azab ayat 6, where Allah has made the Prophet's wives the mothers of the believers. They feel that this is out of respect. You can do that as long as it is not used legally to change the position of your adopted son to your real son. Okay, so it's changed a law at least that now the Prophet's wives, no one can marry after the death of the Prophet. So we have here Akamedi Puya Ali commentary from Multilingual Quran, Shia commentary. This is under Surah Azab ayat 6. His wives are their mothers. Has been mentioned to say you should not marry his widows after him at any time. So what's happened is the position has changed to a real mother. In this case, the law. You see, the law has come about. Now you are forbidden. The believers are forbidden to marry. The believers now are forbidden to marry the widows of Prophet Muhammad according to the Shia tafsir. Aka Mehdi Puya. Right? So, the same thing happens that Allah has condemned in Surah Mujadila 2. By changing the position, like making your wives your mothers, or let's take it from the adopted sons. Let me see how I can say this properly. Do you get it? Like adopted son, your adopted son is not your real son. You cannot give it your inheritance or make him the heir apparent of your wealth, your property and all after your death, right? Your inheritance. You can't give him that. You can't give your adopted son that position that your real son enjoys with you. these are the laws made somehow, that you can't do that, which Islamic law has come and told you you can't do that anymore, which they used to do prior to the Islamic law, right? And the ayats that came condemning it, condemning it. So legally also, you cannot change the position of another person to make them your son, and then legally, like, okay. Let me just see how I'll have to stop this in between if I need to explain. If it comes to me, then I will explain it. Out of respect, did God put make the wives of the Prophet, the believers, others, but also to bring about this law legally, stating, making it his wives, the widows of Prophet Muhammad, should not be married by anyone, right? So this, again, by stating in the Quran ayat Surah Azab, ayat 6, that the wives of the Prophet are the believers' mothers, it implements, it brings a law in that you can now not marry, not only respect and honor them, but not marry the widows of Prophet Muhammad. So it brings a law in which is contrary to the ayats and the reasons given in Surah Mujadila, ayat 2, and Surah Azab, ayat 4 and 5. So let me put it this way. What Allah means in Mujadila, ayat 2, and Azab, ayat 4 to 5, is that you should not legally, even by law, take adopted sons. Legally, it should not legally change the position of uh, your adopted sons to your real sons, your wives to your mothers, even though said, pronounced metaphorically, that they are like the backs of our mothers, like they used to. In Surah Mujadila, we're told also. Ayat 2. You get it? But Allah goes and does the same thing, making, so here we have, then Allah uses the term mother of believers to mean what? He changes the law. I mean, now he's made, by using that mother of the believers in ayat 6 of Surah Azab, not only respecting the mother of, respecting the wives of the Prophet, and making them, because just call them mothers. No, the law has changed. Now he's implemented a law to forbid believers from marrying the widows of Prophet Muhammad. So I reconfirmed this from the Shia tafsir and Sunni tafsir. Although there's an ayat in 53 of Surah Azab that you cannot marry the wives of Prophet Muhammad, both tafsirs of Sunni and Shias about this ayat, Surah Azab ayat 6 says, when God calls them the mothers of the believers, it not only means respect and honor them, but also that you cannot marry them after Prophet Muhammad, you cannot marry the widows of Prophet Muhammad in case of the Shia tafsir. So it's an emphasis of that ayat, Surah 33 of ayat 53, Surah 33, ayat 53. Is mentioned that part where it mentions in that ayat that you cannot marry Prophet Muhammad's wives, right? So he's Allah condemning that in Surah Mujadila, Ayat 2. And also about the sons, don't forget the adopted sons. Just to make it easy for you, sometimes I'll mention the wives where zihar. What is the case of zihar? When they say that you are like the mother's back, you are like our mother's back, a law comes about. The law is divorce has taken place. It is now legally accepted. So this is why God was saying, maybe you're not supposed to do that. It's an evil thing and it's a falsehood. Your wives are not your mother's backs. And you're not also, another thing is, not only this, but you cannot, it's implied, right? You cannot divorce your wives like this, legally changing the position of your wives at that time as your mother's backs. So at one time while I was doing this video, making this video, I thought that I could be wrong about this. So what came to me is that no, I am right. Because in ayat, the legal position of the mother, of the wives of the Prophet, God changed to implement a law, to forbid you from marrying them. Do you get it? Not only out of respect, or honor, but to emphasize that ayat that you're not supposed to marry the wives of the Prophet after his death, right? This ayat, Surah Azab ayat. So legal implementation, the position of the mothers of the believers have become, in this case, your true mothers. Because your true mothers you cannot marry. So this is where the contradiction has come, and it's not right for God to do this. You see, where Surah Azab ayat 53 says, so Muslims are wrong and I'm right. I got it. After him, meaning you cannot marry his widows, right? After him, you should, not that you should marry his wives after him. The Prophet's widows you cannot marry after him. Although this verse says, yet both tafsirs say, Shia and Sunni, that this ayat, 6th ayat of Surah Azab, means, where it's put here, and his wives are their mothers. Aka Mehdi Puya says, his wives are their mothers. Do you see this? In quotation marks. In this ayat, his wives are their mothers, has been mentioned to say what? Exactly what he condemns against those Arabs who practice zihar in Surah Mujadila 2. You should not marry. Allah, you are forbidden to marry his widows after him at any time, in verse 53 of this surah. So his wives are their mothers, which is mentioned, and this is the commentary section. Please check again. Recheck, keep checking. His wives are their mothers. Aka Medipuya emphasizes, explains, his wives are their mothers. Do you want me to zoom it closer? His wives are the mothers, in quotation marks, has been mentioned in this ayat to say, you should not marry his widows after him at any time. 53 of the surah, which is in this verse 53 of the surah. That's why it's put in quotation marks. Has been mentioned to say what is in verse 53 of the surah. You should not marry his widows after him at any time. Verse ends, quotation mark ends. And this verse is of 53 of the surah. So what Allah condemns against those Arabs who used to practice zihar, He goes and does the same thing. On one level, He's put the wives of the Prophet widows. Forbidding you to marry them because He calls them, now He now has made them mothers of the believers, which is a contradiction against Surah Mujadila 2. Don't let me explain that again and again. And about the adopted sons, not getting the position of your real sons, especially emphasis on what? The law matter, right? You can't apply the laws, legal laws, that would apply for your real son. Islamic law says that because of the ayats. Then how come Allah has put a legal law on this, that his wives, his widows now are forbidden to you? Not only because there is an ayat 53 of the surah saying that, stating that you cannot marry them, but also the emphasis by stating it here in ayat 6th of Surah Azab. His wives are their mothers, the believers' mothers. Okay? So this, thank you. Let's help out let's continue with this, and I'll leave you. Thank you very much, Christopher Macho, for the greetings. Don Hugh, sorry again because you were out of the topic. For example, making them heirs to your inheritance and call your wives mothers and divorcing them, then Allah uses the term mother to do the same. That is to implement a law to forbid believers from marrying the widows of Prophet Muhammad. I hope I've made it more clear this time than before in other videos and live streams, and have proven that Allah cannot make an exception to the un-Islamic law He has condemned and use it in the same way for wives of the Prophet, making them unlawful for the believers to marry when widowed.